Hey folks, so welcome to another Wednesday on the sofa. Just a short one today. I'll quickly say why. I've been having to manically go around looking for a house. As I've said in a video a few weeks ago, I've been looking at houses because I have to move, so I've not got a lot of time to edit tonight. So I'm going to get straight to the point. It's a lesser known autofocus trick that we have on the Fuji X-T5, and I think it'd probably work an X-T4 to an extent, but I'm doing it from the state of the 5th generation cameras, and it works as zone autofocus. You can use subject with it as well, and I think it's something that people just maybe don't use, and I've been guilty of not using it. So I'll illustrate it with some videos. Basically, when you go into the autofocus settings on the camera and you set it up for zone autofocus, and then I've set the speed for objects that I've made the autofocus quite sticky so that it stays locked on to the subject, as you can see, and I've then set the autofocus to have fairly static targets because I was taking pictures of a greater egret. And I was very impressed at the range I was at, and using the teleconverter, how sharp I got the pictures. And I'll bring one up later on in the video so you can have a look at the picture I took. Very impressed with this stills autofocus. So the setting that I'm talking about is called center or front, and it's to do with the zone of the zone autofocus. So what it basically does is you can have it on auto where the camera decides, which is pretty much the default setting, but not a good idea because the camera decides. So what it does is if you put it on front, the camera will focus on things in the front. It'll tend to favour them. In other words, if your subject is in the foreground, you want to have it on front if it's inside the zone. Because even if it's at the edge of the zone, the camera will still tend to lock on it. And you know the trouble you often have with zones of getting it to focus on things? Well, now you've got your bird or your subject in the foreground, you would put it on at the front, especially if there was another subject nearby that was confusing the autofocus. And as I'm illustrating here with my orange and yellow owl and my stuffed toy cat, you can see that although I've got the autofocus reticle over the cat's face, it's focusing on the bird for the most part still. And that's my real cat down there, if you heard meow. And apologies if you can hear any music booming. School holidays have started, and as I say, there's a ruckus going on. I've got neighbours doing DIY. It's the school holidays. Welcome to suburbia. The Pet Shop Boys did a song called Suburbia. Anyway, I digress. So that's how front works. Now, if you want to focus on things at the centre of your zone, you want to put it on centre weighted. And what it'll do then, and I'll bring another illustration up, is even if there's something in the foreground, it'll tend to ignore that and go for what's at the centre of that zone. So it gives you a little bit of control over what the zone is doing. As you can see, it's focusing on the cat in the example I've showed you. So yeah, so you've got control over what you're doing with the autofocus, and I think it's a part of the Fuji autofocus that people overlook. And I can understand why, because if you've got a Sony camera, which has a more advanced autofocus, that kind of is more AI oriented, it works out the box. You have to work a bit to make the Fuji autofocus work, and that means learning to configure it. And this is quite a powerful setting. And as you can see from the picture I've got of the great egret here, and I'll sort of slowly zoom in on it because it was from quite a distance. I was probably 300 meters away from it. It's a long way. I was quite impressed with the clarity around the eye and the fact that the camera had been able to focus on what I wanted, which was the foreground and not the busy background. And one of the problems we get with Fuji cameras is they do sometimes switch to the background when we don't want them to. It's not a catch-all. It's not going to magically fix the autofocus and make it Sony level, but it's a tool in your arsenal to configure the autofocus for what you're doing if you want to use zone. And of course it works with subject. As long as the subject is in the box, the subject detector, if it finds the subject, will absolutely favour the subject. And it's probably better than using single point sometimes for something that's moving around a bit. Single point's great for static things, or a bird that's just sitting on a twig doing nothing. If the subject's not moving much at all, single point works. But remember, this only works in zone autofocus mode. Of course, it will work in video, because video, the autofocus is completely different. So I wanted to bring this little autofocus tip to you that maybe was a little bit obscure. Now, I was going to do a Lumix tip as well, because I've got a really interesting tip, and I'm going to share that with you either next week or during the week if I get a chance, but probably next week. And I'll just give you a little flavour of what it is. Is one of the problems with Lumix cameras is the constant autofocus. The constant exposure simulation, whereby if you're doing long exposures, the frame rate drops. Well, I've got a workaround for that, but you'll have to tune in next week. So remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to catch up with my little video next week, which will go into a little tip with the Lumix cameras and any other news there is. So just a short one. Hope you enjoyed it. Try out that autofocus tip. Let me know in the comments how you get on, or let me know if you know any other autofocus tips, or if you have any general questions about the Fuji autofocus, because it's a quirky old thing, not like other cameras, and you do have to work at it. But I've been very impressed with the latest autofocus. Like I say, not perfect, but those pictures I got of that bird, as you've seen when I zoomed in on it, really impressive at the distance, considering the diffraction you can potentially get there. The autofocus has done really well to get the eye at that distance, have sort of detail to it. I was very pleased. It's work to do, but I hope this little tip helped you. Catch you all later, folks. Bye.